Hello there. This is me again with another update. Now, the next step in my journey to to decipher that crazy list involves a couple things. Well, one of the things I did using the new tools that I had, I think I just did it with a U-test here, was I walked through these folder descriptions, and I forgot to tell you last time that I also added this function called, well, first it was called query, and that somehow messed up the IntelliBase, and the IntelliBase wasn't very intelligent anymore, and couldn't really figure anything out. But when I just changed the name slightly, everything seemed to be okay. So here I am just going through and printing out those folder description things, and I save them off to a file. Thankfully. Hopefully it's still there. Docs. They're there. I've also been doing a little, every now and again, I fix or add some little thing. I fixed that bug that I had where I had the double dots. That was a tricky one to find. The save as, or if I did any file, and I did save as, and if I omitted the end, so I get 2 dots, right? Then I tried it with under the debug version, and I didn't. And then I realized that it had to do with which one of these was selected. If this was selected, I'd get 2 dots. Otherwise, no. It all turned out to be that you're not supposed to include a dot in the default extension. Anyway, that fixed it. But of more interest is this list here, I think. One thing that I find curious about it is it says that the last write time, was not yesterday, it was like a month ago almost, March, April, it's April now, so a bit less than a month, but none of these things have that date on them. So that, it seems to me, tells me that something might have been removed on that date, because none of these other ones were written to. Okay. Not so important. Now, to try to make sense of some of these things, like, let's say, try and take a simple case. Okay, suppose I'm looking at this one, sample playlists. It has a relative path, sample playlists, and this is its parent folder. So I search for the parent. That's called common music. There's icon, and so that's the folder name, I suppose, and its parent folder is this. And that folder is called public, and so it's just public. Okay, I guess that wasn't very interesting. It didn't lead us to a folder. It led us to something called public. Public / something. But sometimes it does give you something like, okay, common documents. is a relative path called documents under this parent folder. Public again. Okay. I guess public is user / public. Let's try and find another one. Okay, local app data. Now that one just gives you all these. Okay, all these are definitely. This is relative path. Local app data is relative path app data / local. Okay. Now that's a personal thing, I think. It's not public. Here's personal. Now I don't know how this parsing name works. Go back to the top. Oops. Okay, common programs. Programs has common programs is the relative path is called programs under this parent. Give me something. There, see? That is relative path Microsoft Windows Start menu, whose parent folder is this. And that's common app data. So you would, now if you know how to get to common app data, which I do, the common app data is, it wouldn't have been common. Which one were we looking at? Program. Hang on a sec. How about administrative tools? Now I believe it's okay. Now these categories, that might mean it's not a folder. But anyway, it does have a parent folder. Whose relative path is programs. So administrative tools falls under programs whose parent is start, same as before. Okay, program, that's programs. So programs is start menu. And start menu is Microsoft Windows Start menu from app data, which is relative path app data roaming. So you see how you can sort of, if you struggled long enough, you might be able to make some sense of this. This parsing name, though, is a mystery. These are not numbers that appear in this list as well. It's got those double colons, and here there's a funny 0 thing, and there's a comma at the end. It's some other thing. I don't know what that is. It could be registry. Save games. I just got to figure out what some of these flags mean, and that might help. Home group provider, parsing name, and icon. But now what I wanted to be able to do automatically in parsing this, and maybe getting a better printout, is to take these string value, when it says at string and then an identifier. So I want to be able to pull the strings out of shell 32. So I'm trying to figure that out. And I thought it was going to be pretty darn simple. Well, it took a while to locate this function because the help just doesn't that just doesn't come up. Like, I went online and I started looking for extract resources, maybe? Resources from, well, DLL. I didn't have the C++ at first. And all these things, I kept seeing load library, right? And I thought, no, that's crazy. You can't, I'm sure these things don't do load library, and you can just take it out of the file, right? You don't have to load a library. That's going to make it active. Okay, there's a lot of utilities that do it, but nobody seems to want to tell you how, what the code is. Anyway, it all comes down, all I saw was this load library. So I looked at it. Load library. And just, nobody seemed to mention it, but I figured this has got to be the function, right? Not this one. Because when you call this, right, load library, it tells you right away that like a DLL main gets called and all this stuff. Load library, map a DLL, map other executable. Yes, don't run a program. Not safe to call from DLL main. And if it's not, I'm sure that this is the one that you would call if you're planning to use the functions, right? But all I want is the resources. To get just the resources, there's another function, another load library, this one, EX, which takes a file name and flags. And you can do just load as data. So that's why I figured I'd probably need that. And it even says, you use this one if you don't intend to use these functions because they're not going to work, but you can use all of these functions, right? Get all the resources up. All right, no problem. Now I figure I'm pretty much 99% of the way home. I load the library. Now it's just a matter of calling, one of those enums, and I found enum resource name sounded like the right one. You give a type, and I like the types here. Okay, and okay, RT string table entry. It's gonna be so easy. I give my enums prop, and I call the enum names function, and well, you'll notice it's all commented out because none of this worked. I tried everything. I mean, this is supposed to be the name of the resource, which is sometimes a number and sometimes a string. Strangely, though, it's non-cons. And this is the type, and I had an assertion that this type was RT string. It was. And the numbers were coming back, like the first one, 4 or something. Where? I don't have it anymore. The one I'm loading is shell 32. Just so I can compare with what I'm supposed to get. There must be code out there for this. I can't be the first person who's ever written this. They're utilities. I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places, or I don't know what. Come on, load up. Anyway, can I do this? No. I'll pause this when it's loaded. I don't understand that slowness. It makes no sense. So anyway, here is a string table, right? Now supposedly these things have values. No, I never saw any number that it looked anything like any of these numbers, nor any strings or anything, right? In this Enum names prompt. You know, I tried, like they say in the help, I don't know why they tell you all this stuff, because it never happens. Let's see now, is this the one? New names proc. Okay, the types I already looked at. Okay, if is int resource, if that's true, meaning that the x is an int, it's not a string. Then x specifies the integer identifier for the given resource. Well, in fact, that's all I ever got. I never got strings, but I never got any of those numbers, right? It would be 4 or something. Otherwise, it could be an all-terminated string starting with a pound sign, and then the remaining characters represents a decimal number that then identifies the thing, and then you would get ID 258, and then you could, try and load up resource number 258. Well, it never happened. So this never happened. This never happened. I only ever got here. I don't know. I just somehow I clicked and clicked and clicked and clicked, and eventually I landed on this page. I don't know how. And I didn't really want to read through it all. I thought I was like, just one step away from getting the resource out. But then, they had some sample code. It's always frightening to look. Okay, now the following code implements these steps for update. Now I'm not updating the resource. Now here's another one. Resource. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to find a resource, like an RT string, for instance. Right? Now, if only their example included a string, and load string, but that never worked. Right? Load string. I don't know what they think is going on, but I mean, like, first you have to have an identifier for one thing, and you never get one. So how are you supposed to use this load string? And then here's their example. What's the example supposed to do? Enum resource type, either an ID or a pointer to string. To use an enumerated resource, I guess that's what I've got. The resource name or ID, and call the appropriate function. I don't know. No, that never worked. So it must not be an enumerated resource. If it's an ID, either directly or in a string that starts with a pound called load string. No, that didn't work. Otherwise, points to a string containing resource names, so do the following. Call find resource, load resource, and lock resource, and updating a similar pattern. But wait a minute. Here's the beginning part. That's what I should have read first. This code demonstrates how to load an executable file and do something with the resources. And call enum resource types to find to iterate through the resource types, and then call enum resource names to get all the different names for a particular type, right? And then call enum resource languages to get the particular language, the thing for a given language, and another callback. Well, I've tried everything, so I figured it was worth a try. All I gotta do is figure out the code. Now, if only they didn't do what they're doing in the code. Does it say here? Somewhere it says, and along the way we're printing out the results. So it says somewhere. Yeah, our enum lang func writes the information about the resource type, name, and language into a text file. That doesn't sound so bad, except look at the way they do it. Can't use fopen, hfile, create file, blah blah blah, invalid handle, error handler, etc. Now, well, what is this one? Which function is this we're in? Nothing. There's no function. Oh no, this is the enum langs func. Okay. Create file. Every time through, H result is stir cch printf into SZ buffer 80 over size of tcar. Now what's 80? Where did 80 come from? There's an 80 there. They could have said size of this over size of tcar. Anyway. The file contains the following resources. You see, I'm focusing on this thing, and then I realize, oh, that's just a message they're sending to themselves. Okay, what's the next line about? I said buffer 80 over tcar. If failed what? H result. Oh, that's printing to a string. Write file. Okay, H file. Right? Like, so far, all they're doing is working on getting one string out into the result.txt, right? Okay, finally something's happening. Enum resource types. Wait a minute now. HEXE. Which function are we in? I don't know what function we're in, but it's doing enum resource types. Okay, so I guess this must be main, I think. Okay, here's the enum resource types function. Now, instead of using isInt resource, they're doing it this way. Check to see if any of the top 16 bits are non-zero. Okay, back to H result equals string ch printf 80 over tcar type colon percent blah blah blah. If failed H result, and now this is commented out, so that it looks like this line was what they used to have in here, which is nice and clean, and they've replaced it with this god-awful mess. Similarly here. H result stirs the and now here it's trying to find the length of something called cb string and write that out to the file. Where's cb string? Size. It's a size type. Now where did that come from? Who cares, right? Now what function was that? Enum types, oh god. Okay, enum names, same problem. Finally, enum lang. Entry find resource X, trying to print out, yeah. Do your goddamn printing, and where do you extract the string? Nowhere. There's nowhere in this whole thing do they actually extract the string. All they do is print out a hex number, right, called resinfo, and the size of the resource. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, but I didn't give up because I actually started, stupidly not copying it, but adding this enum lang func. See what would happen. So I had this enum lang func, or prop, which for some reason or other, this thing complains that this is not the right type, even though it's exactly the right type. But whatever, I just cast it. Probably because I used callback. Now it took me a while to figure this out. Now I must have see, this was, I saw this written down somewhere. Here, yeah. Find resource EX with type and module and name and language. I thought that might give a result, and it does. This doesn't come out empty. It's just some kind of handle. Now, this is the very last thing I figured out, this size of resource. But before that, there's something about an hglob. Do I have that in here? No, but I must have gone find resource. This one. Okay. Now, they keep trying to get you to call this. It's I want to slap them because that just doesn't do anything. I'm sorry to say. Okay, now there's something called lock resource too. Now this thing returns a handle to a resource. Find resource. Where did it go? Here, right? And with that, you can then call load resource from the module H. Now this is supposed to actually do an allocation of some sort. What they're trying to get you to do here is to avoid this allocation, I think. Right, an application can use the find resource EX to find any type of resource, but should only be used if the application must access the binary data resource when making subsequent calls to log resource. To use a resource immediately, an application should use the following resource-specific functions. In your dreams. And then, did I click this? I might have. Yeah, that's where I was. That must be how I got to this horrible example. Okay. Well, now then I looked at this load resource I must have. Right, okay, that's where I got the handle from. Now Here they're still pushing this thing. The return type is an H global, and you gotta really be careful reading this, for backward compatibility, not because the function returns a handle to global memory. That's not the reason, okay? Except that's actually what it does. Do not pass this handle to global lock or global free. Okay, so I had to cut that code out. To obtain a pointer to the resource data, you must call lock resource function. Lock resource. Lock resource returns a pointer to void, and presumably at this point you've found it. Okay. Well, here it is. There's the H glob. I load it. Now I know that this causes an allocation. We'll see in a minute why. Why this is actually calling global alloc, right? And this lock resource, well, it may lock. It probably just calls global lock. You know, maybe this was true 5 years ago or something, but no more, right? I'm sure you could do the same thing with global lock. All right, so let me step up to here. So now eventually I got in here. I guess I should have stopped there. So I got this hrez info. That's here. Okay. Now, of course, I was curious to see if that was like a pointer to anything. And in fact, it does look like a pointer to something. It looks exactly like a pointer to something. And it has this weirdo 66 here. But I tried looking at this address and you didn't get anything. Now this size here, I found out about this much later on. That turns out to be 66. Never mind, that's 66 hex is the size of the resource. Now I'm supposed to say load resource, which is going to give me an H glob. Here's the H glob. 1, 2, something. Oh, yes. The point about I know that it's called global alloc is this handle here. That's the module handle where we're loaded to. H module is 75C8 blah blah blah. But these numbers are nowhere near. They're not coming out of the mapped. I've mapped a DLL into memory, right? And its resources are sitting there for me to read if I want. But it's made a copy. It has to, right? These are outside of the DLL. Okay. Now just out of curiosity, I thought I'll look at this one. Oh, that looks. Now it's a matter of wait a minute, version something something. Now look back at this version something. That's the string resources. Whoops. Where was I? Oh well, okay. Now let's see what lock resource does. Well, that seemed to copy this number to go up here. On the other hand, I can't be sure. Maybe this thing might have wandered away if I didn't call lock. All right. But you'll notice that okay, it's great. We're certainly near this thing. It keeps changing. I want 16. We're certainly near the string, right? Version level, but we're not at it. However, after finding this 66 production machine, that tells me how far I'm allowed to read into this block of data. I just came up with the only answer I think I could come up with, which is just keep walking through until you hit something that's non-zero. And what you hit here is a count. I determined this number is a count, and it's the length of the string that follows here. So first I'm putting begin where we are, end is just as far as we're allowed to go. Okay, so begin plus size. Now this is in bytes, this size, not T cards, because it could be any kind of resource. It could be a dialogue resource or anything. And all this loop is doing is while begin is less than n, and there's no character, increment begin and decrement size. So that's why my size thing doesn't work out. I should subtract 2 from size. Doesn't matter though, because it terminates by another means. Yeah, I actually don't use size anymore, do I? Yeah, I thought I could use size to get the string length, but it's got nothing to do. String length is already here. So actually I can get rid of size. Size it's still valid. PTC end is still correct. Alright, step up to here. Okay. Now take star of where we are, and that gives 1C or 28 characters. At 28 character, there's going to be a 28 character string at the next position, so that I read it in 28 characters. There's my string, exactly the same. Add that to my, I passed in a list to this. It's my optional parameter. So I add it to the list, increment my begin by number of characters read plus 1 because of the size. And when I do that, that takes me exactly to a 7 here. See? And I didn't think, that doesn't sound like a coincidence because the next string is only 7 characters long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's no coincidence. The next string is debug. Add it to the list, add that, and begin 12, end 16, 4B. So it seems like there's, okay, there's all these zeros, that's all. But the next T car, we hit the end here, we read in the null terminator, the next string would be count and string, and the next count value is 0, so we're done. We break out of this, return true, and we keep running. And I still have my get. At the end, I print them all out as the get. So F9, and it's building it up. But we want to have this visible. String number 1. Version %d, %d blah. String number 2, debug. String number 3, open file location, 4, see what I'm saying? And it works out perfectly, you don't miss anything. The only thing I don't know is how to get these numbers. But I think that's the way you're supposed to do it, because none of the functions that I could find would return me any of these strings. But the format of the data is quite clear. It's the Pascal strings, they have a length, they're null terminated and they have a length. Oh, I guess because sometimes some strings might have. Yeah, I have to be more careful. Maybe some strings have multiple zeros in any event. There's a lot of them, and it doesn't miss anything, and there are no crashes or anything. And now I can extract this list. The only question is, where do these numbers come from? And I haven't figured that out yet. I get into it's too late now, I've gone through them all. And all I've got is this type and this name, but the name, we'll start over again. The first one should have been, its number should be 60, right? Now if you can find a 60 anywhere in here, you are a genius. Name is 4, type is 6, okay? So 4 is the name of this block, right? Because notice it contains 2 strings, 60 and 61, turned out. And the data is PV data. Well, that I just saw it. I don't see a 60 anywhere in here. It ends here, right? Now, there's a bunch of stuff afterwards, but I don't see that being I don't see any. It's 4F 60 decimal. $79. I don't see any indication of the number 60. And the call stack, which is where we came from, is the same, 4 and 6, right? So I don't know. There's also, this isn't the only Enum, there's Enum resource values or something. Names and values, maybe you can make a connection with the help of, if you could figure out that code with the create file, a wonderful code, so easy to read. I swear, like, whoever wrote that, like, it's one of those people that you hate them immediately and you want to just walk up to them and slap them, right? You can see that some idiots come in here and thinks he's a big know-it-all and changed all these simple things like Printf with H result stir ch len blah blah blah. If failed H result, try to fail as securely as possible. Do everything perfect. Well, that may be the case, except you're trying to show somebody something. Focus entirely on the details of printing out your little strings. Like, what is it doing? Here I see res info, size of resource. Where is it giving me the identifier number, right? It never gets this CV string is only for this message, right? It doesn't print the string. There's no identifier here. There's no identifier here. And I don't think that this program prints out the, it prints type, name, but the name is like 4. I don't know. But I think it's pretty good though that at least I can walk through them. So that's some progress. Happy about that. Oh yeah, about my notepad. You know how I got this, I have this recent file list thing, right? It's all great and everything. But there's infinitely many of these things, right? Well, not infinite, but there's a lot. So I thought, just as I want to do with the user assist, I added that feature to my notepad. See? I can look back in history and see all the files that I've opened. A lot of them don't exist anymore, but it might remind me of something. And in doing so, I fixed up this little bug. You see where this window is? Now if I move this here and do the same thing, it's in the same relative position anyway. So it's another little thing. Alright, well, I'll let you know what happens. And of course, if anybody knows something that I don't know, it seems like, it's always a battle to try and get information out of a help file. I can't offer any money, but you have my gratitude if you just tell me what I have to do to get those identifier numbers. Right. See you. So sad. I didn't have to, but I have to add. I have to add this very quick addendum to this thing here. I don't know about these other cases. We'll deal with those later. One of the things I noticed, about these strings here is these values. Those values work with load string. Oh dear God. Anyway, so it's pretty easy to get the numbers out. It's such a stupid thing that you would never think of it, or I would never think of it. Assuming that they're all number identifiers, okay? If they're not all number identifiers, then you get the ones. You can certainly still match up the ones that have number identifiers, but you'd have to be a bit more careful. In this case, they're all numbered. I know that because it only ever lands on this line. Okay, so I go through Enum names, and that gives me a great big list of strings, right? Oops, sorry. This list, I figured a good idea would be, as this is going on, I might as well keep track of the maximum length of all the strings. Okay, so now I allocate a string of that length exactly, and count through all the numbers from 0 up to FFFFF, seeing if I can load that number string. If I can, then I will add that number to the head of the string in the list. That will be its identifier number. And advance to the next position. Eventually this pause will become null, and then I have all the strings and all their identifiers. See? I'll just run through it. It just dawned on me that, you know, there's always the brute force method. And once you've run through it once, right, it's not going to be slow. It's as fast as it was. These are the same numbers. Okay. 4 of 1 of 6, next will be 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23. Let's see. Where does it diverge or anything at any point? These all look contiguous. Oh, hang on. After 500, then it jumps up to 608. Oops, we missed it. 500, 608. See? It's in one-to-one correspondence, as you would expect. So there you go. That's how you get the identifiers and the strings. And now that I have a list of identifier number versus string, that means to string, then I can use that back to go through that other text file and extract the relevant strings from the relevant DLLs. Now I don't know if there's anything else I should add before I just tack this on the end. That's for strings. You could do the same with any kind of resource, obviously. There is no, as far as I know, as I've checked online, there's no special way to do it, right? Maybe the way that people usually do it is that they don't do the enum step at all, right? They just start going from 0 up to infinity, and that's probably pretty quick. It's probably quick enough, right? That's the maximum possible value for a numeric identifier. It's never that big. 65,000. You could probably go to half of that and give and quit. In fact, there's probably a special number that will never be bigger than that. And so that would do it. That's another way. This enum is all this enum did was speed it up a little, right? It means that I knew exactly how long the longest string was. I could have printed them out without knowing the numbers. And how many there were. So I knew when to quit this loop. That's all, right? But other than that, it's of little to no utility. Well, not true, because some of them might be string values, and you won't get the string values out of this loop. Okay, so I'll add this on the end and then I'll upload it again.